Union, to Europe, not the European Union itself. And he is there in charge of the energy division. With that, I think you are good to go, Scott, to give us your keynote speech and share your screen, therefore.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, kind of depending on where you are. I will be sharing my screen in a moment, but at least I let you see what I look like before I go off into Neverland. I'd like to thank you all for inviting me to speak to you. As I said, this is actually a fascinating, passionate topic, so it's actually not hard to get me to talk about it. I'd like to thank you for inviting me. The challenges that we face, I'm the director of the Sustainable Energy Division at UNECE, the Economic Commission for Europe being one of the 5 regional commissions in the United Nations family. So we actually don't have anything to do. We've got a lot to do, but we're not linked organizationally to the European Commission in Brussels. The word sustainable energy is actually quite problematic. And there's a lot of question about what do we actually mean about sustainable energy. On the one hand, you've got folks who think that it's all about climate change. And they're very keen on renewable energy and energy efficiency and decarbonization. And that really is a critical focus. And I'll come back to that in just a second. On the other hand, you've got the rest of the world, which is worried about putting food on their table, roof over their heads, educating their children. And it's about the development angle. Doesn't mean that climate change is not important. It's just not number one on their list of hierarchy of needs. And the challenge that we face for sustainable energy for sustainable development, as I like to say, is finding an integrated solution that can work for everybody. So with that, I will see if I can share my slides here and go to my screen and then put this up. And that didn't work. Bear with me, I'll be with you in just 2 seconds. I've moved it down for some reason, and now it goes. There we go. So what we have is a world where energy is the golden thread that connects all of the Sustainable Development Goals. You can see Sustainable Development Goal number 7 is front and center. It's access to affordable and clean energy, but the rest of the Sustainable Development Goals are in there, and they are all connected. The issue of climate change is there front and center. It's not a doomsday prophecy made by some wackos. It really is a reality. And the work that we've done here at ECE shows that a lot of work has to happen if we want to get to 2 degrees. But right now we're on the pathway to between 4 and 6 degrees. So it is 10 past midnight on the doomsday clock of climate change. And this graphic, apparently it's cut off a little bit, but you got these 2 little scientists saying, I'll be happy when this is over. They're looking at the coronavirus pandemic, which is the little purple blob on the left-hand side. And you've got this tsunami of the climate change challenge coming down the pathway. Now, that's not the only issue that we face. If you look at all of the natural resources that are out there of what we're consuming, you look at low-income countries, you look at middle income, you can look at high-income countries, and you can see how much material is required per capita for all of the different economies in the world, and 11.7 being the average. If you imagine a world of 9 billion people and you have everybody consuming at that high income level, you're suddenly going to need 7 planet Earths to provide all of the resources. We don't have 7, at least not the last time I looked. So let me get into my main remarks. And I've structured my remarks as a sonnet, if you will. There are 3 stanzas, each one with 4 lines. And the reason I like the word sonnet is it goes along with the French word sonnet, and sonnet being an alarm. So you've got a poem and an alarm at the same time. The first graphic there is when you come to a fork in the road, take it. And the idea here is a fork in the road is also when a road splits in two directions. And we like to think that we've got choices or options in what we're going to do. Let's do energy efficiency. Let's do renewables, and we can just walk away from carbon. 80% of today's energy mix is fossil-based. Even under a 2 degrees scenario where we do meet 2 degrees, we're still going to have 50% of the energy mix being fossil. We'll try as we might, if you look at the economics of it, that's what makes sense. So when we say look at the fork in the road, I am actually looking at a fork. And I'm thinking about these options: carbon capture and storage, high efficiency fossil, renewables, energy efficiency, nuclear. They're all part of the energy mix that we need if we're going to get to our destination. That's critically important, and you can't simply say, well, we're to do without them. The lights won't stay on, and that's a critical issue. The second graphic there, and this theme of this whole slide, by the way, is pathways. So I'm looking at 4 different kinds of pathways. That second graphic, the footprint in the sand, is a journey of 1,000 miles, begins with a single step. The point here is that we can't wait for the United Nations to negotiate and agree to some fabulous overarching agreement and get some conclusion and get countries to act, because that will take forever. What's very necessary, and what I'm finding most effective with the work that we're doing here, is engaging with local community players, engaging with cities, engaging with companies, and get the actors to actually start acting. Don't wait, get on with it. The third graphic down on the bottom left is all roads lead to Rome. Well, Rome in this case is the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Rome is the Paris Climate Agreement. And the idea of all roads leading to Rome is every country has got its own legacy of natural resources, its cultural, regulatory, what it's inherited from those who came before. The whole heritage issue is quite important. There's not one pathway that applies to every country on the planet. They're going to choose their own way. Now, there are some key elements that are common to those different pathways. I like to say that we the people should be able to expect that governments are acting in our interests. They're trying to improve our quality of life. That's not always true, but it should be. We, the people, should expect that governments are going to behave rationally economically, rationally socially, and rationally environmentally. Again, that's not always true, but it really should be. So even though there are all of these differences amongst the different countries, there needs to be a price on carbon, a price either with a tax or a price with a market mechanism putting a price on greenhouse gases. There needs to be a lot of work done in that area. The final common thing for all of these pathways is we should be able to depend on mutually beneficial economic interdependence. We should be building up trading relationships. We should be working as the United Nations on common approaches and helping one another, helping each other with capacity, helping each other with knowledge, sharing what we need to do, because it's going to be easier to achieve these objectives. And just look at the pandemic we're coming through. I hope we're coming through. And you realize that a collaborative is going to work better than everybody going it on their own. So the final slide there on the bottom right is a Robert Frost poem. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all of the difference. My point with this graphic is that the energy system that has been developed today has been developed by engineers. I can say that because I'm an engineer. And they've been thinking in terms of tons of coal. They've been thinking in terms of kilowatt hours of electricity and BTUs of gas. It's a commodity industry where you deliver more, you sell more, and that's how you make your money. We absolutely need to reinvent energy as a service, because the minute you reinvent energy as a service, you create an entirely new business model. So think about what's happened to telecommunications. Think about what's happening to banks and to airlines. Some of it good, some of it not so good. But that's what needs to happen to energy. My business model needs to be delivering to you 18 degrees, 20 degrees in your house, delivering you comfort. And then I have to go and manage my costs, which means energy efficiency becomes my business model. And that's critically important. Let me move on to my next stanza. And this is famous quotes, and you'll excuse me, there are a bunch of Americans. The top left is Ronald Reagan, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And this comes back to the theme of we need to be working in a common way with a common understanding and common objectives. If we were to able to come up with the rules of the game, come to agreement and have collaboratives, we will get to our destination much more easily. The second one, top right, is JFK. And he says, don't ask what the UN can do for you, ask what you can do for the UN. Obviously, I'm changing the words on that a little bit. But the idea, again, is we have a platform here, a collaborative here, where we can bring all stakeholders under the tent. And they can work together to find the best solutions and get to the outcomes that we want. So we are encouraging civil society. We are encouraging NGOs and companies and individuals to come to our house to help us develop the tools that are needed to get to our destination. The bottom left then is Obama, yes, we can. And if you look at the technologies that are out there and the costs that are out there, clearly it is possible for us to meet the 2-degree agenda objective. Clearly it is possible for us to deliver on development. It is not an obstacle. We are our own worst enemy. And the final one seems to stand out. You might not recognize him. That's actually Gordon Gekko. Who's Gordon Gekko? He's the main actor, main character in the movie Wall Street. And the theme of his speech, which he's giving here, is greed is good, which offends most people. The point is that if we want everybody to be working towards a common set of goals, we've got to find formula that allow them to be working in their own self-interest. And if we can get alignment between what people are wanting to do for themselves and cities are wanting to do for themselves and nations are wanting to do for themselves and what the world needs as a whole, the minute we get that alignment, the outcomes become much simpler to achieve. And that's a very important message. We haven't gotten that one right yet. Let me go to my final stanza. These are 4 different locuses of actions, loci of actions. The first one is about resilience. And you can see with COVID-19 and the individual investments, we're consuming a lot of people's energy and capacity on an individual basis, trying to find their own solutions and their own problems. Wouldn't it be a lot simpler if there was a national or an international testing system that was rational, that was communicated, and we'd be able to achieve our objectives much more easily? What applies to the COVID-19 pandemic applies pretty much in every other domain. So individual as a locus of where things happen. But then you go to the top right and you realize for all of these years, since the dawn of time, we have been industry centric. We're thinking about quarterly results. We're thinking about delivering financial returns. That's why I've used stock prices as the example. That leads to extraordinary degree of short-termism. And it's a very narrow focus, and it doesn't pay attention to longer-term consequences. Come down to the bottom left, and you have basically the anthropocentric perspectives of the 2030 agenda. I happen to endorse the 2030 agenda. I think it's extremely important, but it is focused on human needs and human requirements. That brings me to that final one, which is the sick earth. And I would call that Gaia-centric. We are in the process of ruining the planet that we're living on. We're getting it wrong for ourselves. 4 to 6 degrees is a species-threatening level of temperature change. And we are moving towards tipping points, hence the word sonnet, sound the alarm. We are way late in acting on this. And we actually are caretakers of a system that's much bigger than ourselves. And we need to be, if you will, humble servants of the planet. So I'm going to point to 2 things that, to my view, are extremely important. The The first one is high performance buildings. And if we could do high performance buildings correctly, near term, they would be part of the green recovery program, putting money into the hands of electricians and plumbers and architects and contractors. If we can get the building designed right, put the right systems in place, have energy delivered from low carbon or no carbon energy sources, connect into transport systems, we're talking about quality of life at global scale. 40% of CO2 emissions come from the energy services that buildings require. And this is where people spend most of their lives. If we can do buildings right, we could actually make a lot of progress towards our agenda. The second one is related to methane, and people argue about methane and methane emissions. The natural gas industry wants to expand enormously as part of the solution, but if you're losing methane to the atmosphere, it is 120 times on an instantaneous basis more warming potential than CO2, and it is a major and growing problem. So between those two items, greenhouse gases and buildings, I think we can make a lot of progress very quickly. Finally, we want to achieve this deep transformation of the energy system, which is bringing in distributed energy sources, low carbon energy sources, all of the above solution. We can get there. And I think that's my basic conclusion from my comments that I'm making. The United Nations is a candle in the window. We serve as a gathering place where we bring people together to talk. We set aspirations out there, and we set the stage for strong collaboration. And those are absolutely critical services provided by the United Nations. But in the end, I want to come back to Obama. Yes, we can. We have the technology, we have the skills, we have the know-how. Yes, we have to, because the alternative is unacceptable. We have to because 4 to 6 degrees doesn't work, and we have to because of social equality across the planet. And yes, we will. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much. And if there are questions, I'd be delighted to field them. If I can figure out how to stop sharing my screen, that'd be the first thing. There we go.
Thank you very much, Scott, for your exciting and engaging speech. We thank you for taking the time for this event in your capacity as the director of the Sustainable Energy Division of the UNECE, to correct myself from the previous statement. We already told you in the chat, but just so you know again, if you want to direct a question towards Scott, just raise your hand in the chat and Aidil will take care that you can also direct your question then to Scott.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tim. We've got 3 actually of participants who want to ask the question. The first one will go to Mr. Caleb Owusu. Mr. Caleb, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How are you doing?
Fine, fine. The time is yours, please.
Thank you. So we briefly talked about the sustainable development technology. I wanted to talk about carbon capture technology and whether that is a more efficient way of reducing carbon emissions versus investments in carbon capture technology versus just imposing a carbon tax, for instance, to encourage more innovation in sustainable development and sustainable energy.
Thank you.
A question for the organizers. Do you want to field all the questions first, or do you want me to answer them one by one?
Maybe since we are trying to make sure we have enough time and enough time for answer to, I guess we will take it one at a time. After you respond to it, we'll take another one. Okay.
Carbon capture and storage is also referred to as carbon capture use and storage, where you're actually using the CO2. We have made recommendations to the United Nations FCCC that carbon capture and storage be considered like other low and no carbon energy sources, which means that if you're going to support renewables to a certain degree, there's an implicit value of CO2 emissions in what you've done. What you would want to do is get policy parity amongst the different technologies. I'm not going to tell you, yes, it's part of the solution, because that'll depend on what the numbers show at the end. Do you have a place to put the carbon? Can you collect it and manage it in a cost-effective way? Can you deal with all of the technical issues of safety? But assuming all of those answers are correct, right now the Canadians and the Norwegians and several others are demonstrating commercial scale carbon capture and storage. The estimates are that 15% of CO2 emissions are going to have to be captured through CCS by 2050. And without CCS, we cannot get to 2 degrees. It is one of the options to which I refer. I don't want to be seen as endorsing it, because again, it has to depend on how the numbers play out. But in the absence of a price on carbon, the business model for CCS is damaged. Either you're going to have CCUS, where you're using the carbon captured to enhance oil recovery and gas recover. That's a bit circular reasoning there. So how are you going to make money on CCS, or how are you going to pay for the CCS is an open question. That's a long way to answer your question by saying, yes, CCS is part of the solutions picture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott, for your responses. And then the next question will be Fahim Jailani. The time is yours.
Hello, can I be heard clearly?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Hello, Mr. Foster. I would like to ask about you. Since economy and SDG number 7 are specially connected, what do you think of in countries, particularly Indonesia? They're starting to think about their economic recovery, and they're actually using this chance to increase development in renewable energies. Do you think this is the government's way of taking the chance to start the massive development of renewable energies, or do you think this is they're just in it for the economy way? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
My own view, and I'll say this is the ECE view, the unfortunate pandemic that we are still living through, it's not finished, and nor the economic repercussions finished. It clearly is an opportunity for a pivot to a different pathway. And the pathway we were on until February or March clearly was heading towards this 4 to 6 degrees that I've mentioned. By taking advantage of the pivot and redirecting investments in another way, you can clearly invest in the future in a way that's consistent with sustainable development, insisting on both sustainable and development. Now, does that mean that they should place all of their bets on renewables? Again, is a bit of an open question. I happen to firmly believe in renewables, but it depends on the quality of the resource. It depends on what kind of demand is being met. The idea of doing buildings right and at the core of the future energy system has got to be energy efficiency and energy productivity. And then don't just sponsor renewables with feed-in tariffs or with green auctions. Put in place the right framework conditions, access to customers and access to networks that allow renewables to compete in a fair way. My concern for the renewables industry is that we pump it up so much that we create an industry that can't survive without being pumped up. And the world needs an enduring solution. Renewables are part of that, but they have to be developed on a sound basis.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Foster, for your responses. The next question will be from Emily Carrillo-Reynel. The time is yours.
Okay, brilliant. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, clearly.
Okay. So I'm a student in the UK, and I had a question because I've been working for this NGO over the last few months. And it was about what you said at the beginning of your speech. It's a lot less technical. It's more about the feasibility of a citizen initiative, because what we've been doing in this NGO was working for the reintroduction of biodiversity, and it's a different topic. But the thing is, all the initiatives that we were trying to put in place were being curtailed by government measures and opposing lobbies, which meant that what I'm trying to say is that citizen initiatives are very hard to follow through because we're being boycotted by administration and opposing firms, which makes it very difficult for bottom-up strategies to work. And yeah, I just wanted to bring that topic up as a challenge.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, Mr. Foster.
I will respond to it. I don't have a solution for you, unfortunately, but I have found at the United Nations, we have a high performance buildings initiative. It was brought to us by some folks in Ireland, and they came in with some concepts dealing with near zero or passive house buildings. And out of that conversation, we brought in folks from Canada, folks from Belgium, folks from the US, and have created our high performance buildings initiative. And it's got a lot of enthusiasm and it's moving forward. The passion and the energy is at the local level. And that's what I mean about this citizen level, city level, because I'm finding that much more effective. Now, in terms of the challenges that you're facing with your initiative, I don't know what the parameters of it were, but almost invariably when I launch something, I then find out 2 or 3 days later that there are 20 other initiatives that are very similar. So part of the challenge is a bit of an investigation process, finding out what other similar initiatives there might be, collecting and coordinating with them. I am surprised that the government would be setting up barriers. That wouldn't seem to be their proper role unless they're protecting some other initiative that they've got ongoing. But networking, getting your ideas out and disseminating them. What I meant with my initial comment was that passionate champions are the ones who are going to change the world. And it's not going to be UN or government bureaucrats who are going to do that. So I want to find a way to tap into that local energy, NGO, but energy, to move things forward. If you'd like, what I can do is provide you, and I'll put the slide up here in a moment with my own contact details. If you want to come back to me with some specific questions for your own particular case, I'll see if I can do something.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. And then since we have like 2 or 3 minutes left, I guess we will take the last question here. It will be from Miss Isabel Cafarro Gonçalves. I'm sorry for the mispronunciation. Wait. Okay.
Can you listen to me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Mr. Scott, I just want to know what you think about storage technology like green hydrogen and this kind of technologies.
Thank you. Please, Mr.
Thank you. I shared my screen with the contact details. I'll stop that now, but I hope you got it. We are looking a lot into the hydrogen question. I know your question was more generic than that, but I'm going to specifically look at hydrogen. And you can get hydrogen from a number of sources. And you talk about green hydrogen and brown hydrogen, yellow hydrogen. Is it coming from oil and gas? Is it coming from nuclear? Is it coming from renewables? But hydrogen as a vector, a way of transmitting or transporting energy, also as a storage medium, is very important. Also, at its point of use, it tends to be very clean. So getting hydrogen and the future hydrogen economy is a very strong area of emphasis for countries and for the UN. We're looking at it very closely. Now, more broadly, storage technologies, you've got a number of them. When you're talking about bringing on intermittent renewables, being able to respond to them either with natural gas, which is storable, or with changing the loading on power plants, or by demand side management, all of these are important storage approaches. You can have mechanical, you can have operational, you can have physical, you can have chemical. And everybody keeps talking about the chemical side, which is batteries. Which solution is the right solution? I don't know, but energy storage is an essential part of the future energy mix.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Foster, for your answer. And also thank you very much for your time. It's truly an honor for us to have you here. And then we will proceed into the rapporteurs from each continent. If you feel pleased to stay, please stay tuned. But if you have anything to do, we cannot force you to stay here. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll turn off the video, but I will keep listening.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much,
Bye.
Mr. Foster. And then for the rapporteur, the first one, we will start with Miss Yetunde Fadeyi. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, let me share the screen real quick. Okay, please, the time is yours.
Okay. First off, I would like to thank Mr. Scott Foster for the insightful directions as regarding SDG 7. It happens to be something I'm really passionate about, and I'm glad to share that passion with him as well. So basically, I'll be talking about the status quo for Africa, and the case study is basically Nigeria. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. So first off, I would like to start with this statement. Africa is not a continent. Is a continent rather, not a country. Opposing the perception or image problem, Africa is the world's second largest and second most populous continent with about 54 countries. Africa has the lowest energy access rates in the world, and energy in Africa being like a scarce commodity. Over 900 million people do not have access to energy. You know, the grid connected areas can only boast of epileptic power supply, and they still like face shortages and blackouts due to like lack of capacity, hampering growth and economic development. There are multifaceted and sustainability issues as what the World Bank described, because from the policies to delivery of finance and investment, leadership, energy poverty is not just multifaceted, it's also a sustainability issue. So it cuts across social to economic challenges. Access to energy would definitely enable children to do their homework. Rural villages will not be scared of dark alleys. Entrepreneurs can, launch businesses. So it is needed for safety, growth, and industrialization. But we've been denied this capacity to, make plans for the future because we do not have access to affordable and reliable energy. And this conspicuous lack of energy, stifles economic growth and sustainable development. Like I said, I'll be using Nigeria as a case study because Africa is over, 54 countries. And as a matter of fact, Nigeria, being Africa's largest economy and home to over 200 million people, contributes to 10% of the unelectrified population in sub-Saharan Africa. And over 40% of this population do not have access to electricity. In practice, I would say decentralized fossil fuel generators, which are supposed to be like backup, like Scott Foster said, you cannot essentially eradicate fossil fuel from the energy mix. They still supply the vast majority of electricity in the country. Now, the critical task is basically to address the persistent lack of access to electricity, clean cooking, and the unreliability of this electricity supply. I would like to go back to what the Paris Agreement and the SDGs states about SDG 7 being an essential component of several sustainable development goals. When the Global North talks about energy transition, it is quite difficult for Africa to make a stand because basically there's a large unserved population. I mean, there is no energy to transition from. Having ratified the Paris Agreement, Nigeria pledged 20% unconditional reduction greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, and there's like a 45% reduction conditional on financial, technical, capacity for basically for implementation. And it is disheartening to know that 82 million Nigerians live on less than $1 per day. So affordable energy is kind of like relative within the context of the Nigerian population. So moving on to status quo, I'd like to discuss the key actors in this so-called Nigerian energy sector. The first one is the industrial actor. This are basically leaders of gigantic energy infrastructure integrating the energy market on a daily basis, the likes of Shell, ExxonMobil. Although this fossil fuel has contributed greatly to the energy mix, but has also thrown the Niger Delta areas into catastrophe, seizing their livelihood, lifestyle, and of course, damaging the environment. So like Scott Foster said, there is sustainable energy needs an integrated approach, how we can, harness fossil fuel in a way that it doesn't damage the environment is very, imperative. So moving on to the second key actor, which is the innovators. I would basically call them the leaders of the mini grid exploitation companies, the alternative distribution, because they provide specific dynamics to the energy market, and their flexibility has contributed to the deployment of rural electrification in Nigeria. Until financial actors, the likes of African Development Bank, World Bank, several international agencies like DFID, supporting and ensuring energy access. I know that the UK is really up there trying to help other countries, well, I would say Global South, to move on to basically complete, achieve the SDGs, right? And they've been supported with small and large scale solar projects, especially projects that are deployed by women. So until institutional actors, there are international civil organizations, national organizations concerned with the energy related issues as part of their agenda. Their role is to ensure that the market and surrounding competitions are respected. The organization that I founded, which is Reese Africa, it's a civil organization, has made grassroots support to electrifying 11 rural communities via modeled inclusive approach, via stakeholders engagement and contributions on state level as regarding energy and environmental issues. Then we also have the influencers, and I would like to commend the likes of Tony Elumelu of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, because he's an experienced businessman, who uses his foundation to reach out to entrepreneurs that, accomplishes certain SDG goals. So these are the key actors in Nigeria's energy sector. On to the next slide, please. Talking about Nigerians' ambition for 2030, yeah, the Nigerian government has three key ambitions, which is electrification access, basically 90% of Nigerians having access to electricity by 2030. Then Nigeria intends to generate 30% of on-grid power from renewable sources by 2030, and also meet its climate emission target. But basically with this, there has to be scenarios. Like I said, for Nigeria, it is quite difficult to talk about energy transition when a large population has not been, serviced. So talking about scenarios, onto the next slide, please. The first scenario is basically business as usual. I like to call it the status quo. And it basically means that if we go by this scenario, 47% will still remain unelectrified, and this is basically like a pessimistic scenario because we'll still have to rely on diesel and petrol generators, and there'll basically be lack of new policies or regulatory framework to, you know, help support off-grid electricity access. For this scenario, the enabling environment is very poor, and there's like poor coordination across the value chain, and basically high investment risk. And this is basically what is being experienced currently. So onto the moderate change is slightly different from the business as usual because they're like incremental improvements. It's based on the gas and centralized solutions. The policies are quite, you know, improved, but there's no strong drive as regarding renewables or some sort of investment helping this. And basically there is no stakeholder engagement because the government just, you know, gives to the local government or the local citizens what they think is beneficial for them, not what they know is beneficial for them. So there is no sort of like inclusive service delivery. The third transition, the third scenario basically is the green transition, where 10% of the population remains unelectrified, meaning that we are able to meet the 90% target, and the policies are strong. The multi-tier framework by the World Bank is deployed. It relies on investment risk in on-grid and sustainable off-grid as well. And this is like mitigated with finance, policies, and enabling environment. So basically, this kind of scenario is what Nigeria needs to achieve the its ambition, the 3 targets on electrical access, emission reduction, and renewable energy share. And with doing this, the study predicts that there will be like 28% of Nigeria's electricity coming from natural gas, 5% from hydro, and about 4% from utility-scaled solar. So essentially, as you can see, the coal gas is still evident in this green transition, and the terawatt hour is basically higher than the other 2 scenarios. So energy is like a major enabler for economic development, and as Foster puts it, is energy for sustainable development. And if we are to achieve universal energy access for Africa, if we do not do it this way, if we do not create scenarios, the goal will be basically a distant reach, and will remain will basically be depriving the region of the possibility to build a prosperous future by 2045 when the UN becomes 100 years old. Yeah, but basically guaranteeing energy access should be the priority for Nigeria and other African countries alike. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yetunde, for your amazing presentation. So we get the whole picture about what is going on over there. And then for the next, we will have Team Kniepkamp. Pardon me if I'm wrongly spell your name. Please give us the brief from Europe. The time is yours.
It's all good, my friend. You're not the first one struggling with my surname. All right, let's head on to the first slide. All right, so maybe some general remarks beforehand. As Aidil said already, I'm going to do a brief recap of what has happened or what is the status quo with regard to SDG 7 in Europe. As I've said already, it should be brief, so don't expect that it's covering everything, but let's try to cover the major 3 sub-targets that are aligned within SDG 7. And the first one is the access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy services. Overall, in Europe, we can conclude that there is a universal household electrification, which means that in general, it is possible within the continent to have access to electric energy. Yet at the same time, only about 98% have access to clean cooking fuels. And 21 member states still indicate that there is a proportion lower than 10%, but less distant, that is not able to keep their home adequately warm. Interestingly, that does not apply to those countries within the European Union or within Europe as a continent that are in the lower hemispheres, but in fact in those that are in the warmer hemispheres. And finally, it is also noticeable that the energy expenditures, so your cost you have in comparison to your overall costs like food and others as well. So the share of energy expenditures is noticeably higher in your member states than in the original 15 of the European Union. That leads me on to my next slide. Turning to the second sub-pillar, it is the share of renewable energy in the EU energy mix. First, focusing on the EU level, you can see in the left-hand side that there have been targets set out for 2020, which in many countries have already been fulfilled, but not in all. And what you also can see on the left-hand side that as of 2018, there's a huge difference in the targets. As you can see to the left with Sweden, where the target was, I think, 48 or 49% of renewable energy in the gross final energy consumption. You can see that countries like Malta or Luxembourg only set for about 10% as their target for 2020. So within the European Union, there's a huge difference within the targets and also the current standing. And another interesting factor you can see on the right-hand side is the energy dependency rate, which is dealing with the dependence on imports of energy products to the European Union. You can see there a comparison between 2000 and 2018, that were the latest numbers I could actually find. And you can see there that countries like Malta, again, those on the lower end when it comes to the renewable energy share, are those with the highest energy dependency on imports. Turning to the next slide, Aidil. I'd like to also briefly talk about Germany, as Yetunde talked about Nigeria as an example. The overall energy mix in Germany still relies to about a quarter on solid fossil fuels, and about 35% stem from total petroleum products. That leads us then to only 13.6% of renewable energy as a whole. So that accounts not only for electricity, but also, for instance, for transport and so forth. That's why I've also focused on the net electricity production. You can see on the right-hand side, those numbers are actually from last year, the first half, where you can see that the production of energy in Germany is nearly up to 50% renewable sources, with still about 30% coming from coal and about 13% coming from nuclear power. Turning to the next slide. I also thought I'll share some brief facts with you I found along the way, I found useful. The first one, which is comparing, which is looking from a global scale, is showing that more than half of the global subsidies for renewable energy is actually coming from the European Union as of 2017. And while overall in 2018, renewable energy represented already about 19% of the energy consumed in the EU, it is only about 8.3% in transport activities. So there's a huge difference within the different energy consuming sectors. And also referring to the previous slide on energy dependency, you can see that the EU energy sector mainly depends on Russia. To give you some numbers, 30% of oil crude imports comes from there, 40% of natural gas imports, and 42% of solid fuel imports. And again, some facts about about the German level. Also a bit like an outlook. Germany is planning to shut down its nuclear power plants by 2022 and shut down its coal power plants by 2038. Also, that is again referring to the European level. Finally, that maybe just nota bene, is that studies undertaken by the ARENA predict that a share of up to 33% of renewable energy sources is possible by 2030 under the condition of full implementation of all renewable energy options on an EU level. Now we can jump onto the next slide, which is energy efficiency, the third sub-pillar. And energy efficiency in Europe is often interconnected or interlinked with energy consumption as a whole, where the European Union is working to lower its energy consumption, primarily in the household sector. There have been significant changes between 2003 and 2018, where the energy consumption per EU habitant has dropped by about 10%. But still households account for 25% of the final energy consumption. And with regard to energy efficiency, there is, for instance, the option of better isolation that could help in this regard, only to raise one brief example. And the energy efficiency is also prioritized under the European Green Deal, which leads me to my last slide, if you would be so kind, Aidil. Thank you. Which is the European Green Deal, because I thought I also briefly mentioned at least one legal piece on the European level, which is published in December 2019, so last year, and with the overall target to be a climate neutral continent by 2050. And therefore, as I've said already, energy efficiency is prioritized. And one step in this regard is to develop a power sector that is largely based on renewable energy, secure affordable energy supplies, and that's the final part. That's mostly linked to energy efficiency rather than the renewable energy part, but the last one is, which is that there should be a fully integrated, interconnected, and digitalized EU energy market. That's it so far, just to try to keep it brief, and I'll hand over to Hugo.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. So hi, my name is Hugo Cordeau. I'm currently a climate change researcher looking at the impact of climate change on the wind power for the Canada. I've worked with HSA, Uranos, and Energica, and I'm also a PhD student at Montreal. So can go. Just a brief view of what I'm going to tell, just the state of the art about Canada and USA. Matt will cover a bit Mexico and into the two challenges and promising future too. And also just give a glimpse at the subsidies at the end. So I'll talk about the energy, which is not necessarily the electricity. For me, it was kind of a problem at the beginning because energy is like everything. Energy is like when you open your light, most people have electricity. But when you take your car and you consume oil on fuel, this is energy. So this graph does represent both. So include cars and everything that's related to the energy, right? As you can see, 65% of the energy used in Canada is fossil-based, which is a lot, but less than what is worldwide, especially driven by like transportation. Which is really interesting is you can see like 30% is hydropower. And when you look at other type of renewable energy, you can see the trend in the past years. We have lots of biomass because we have lots of forest here. But what is really interesting is the trend with the wind that just exploded in the past years. And like as my internship is to look at that, I can assure you that in the future year, it will just keep growing that much. And it's the same for solar, which is going to grow, especially with new technology that panel have two sides, which mean like you can cap solar directly and back from the snow too. So it's kind of pretty efficient for the northern Canada. And yeah, can go. One thing is really interesting, just back. One thing is really interesting, but troubling at the same time, is you can see here, since 2009, the consumption has grew much than the renewable energy. So this is kind of really a problem. As an example, like the climate change is really an issue in the past years, but since 2015 is like every year is the breaking records of SUV selling. So like it's outrageous at this level. Like we try to reduce our energy consumption, but we just keep growing much more than we have new renewable energy. We can go to the next one. So what about the United States? It's pretty similar, except then is 80% fossil fuel based. It's mostly because there's less hydropower there. You can really see here at the right, it's the all the renewable energy that is being used, and you can see in the past years mostly wind and solar that got a huge trend, especially because of the subsidized excluded the hydropower because of this environmental impact and social issues too. And it's the solar that has the best growth for the years to come. One other interesting is from 2000 to 2018, it has 100% increase in renewable energy. So this is really good, especially driven because of the subsidies. Can go to the next one. So now one of the two challenges, the cost. That is really interesting problem. This graph shows you the cost per megawatt hour produced if you had to build it now. All right. So this is the comparison. If you are you're a businesses and you want to do energy stuff. So here is your cost that you'll have if you build whenever is this. So rooftop, wind, geothermal, and you also have the conventional, which is kind of what's currently used. You can see like the nuclear cost is pretty high if you had to build it now. However, all of this is already built. It's the same thing for coal. It's already built, so it's just the coal now that is the cost. So one of the interesting thing is it had a cost reduction of like 70% in wind and 89% in solar. So that's very interesting. You can go to the next one. So this graph, it might be not that clear. It do look at the two most promising for the years to come, which is solar onshore for the America and the wind onshore and the solar, and they're kind of cheap, but you can see at the right, this is the conventional generation. You know, when you have to give an example, you have to buy an electric car, it costs a lot of money at the beginning, but after it's near zero the cost of using it. It's the same thing here. When you have I give an example, if you have a normal car, the only cost that you have is like your fuel. But if the car is already bought, you only have to pay the fuel. So at the right, you only see the fuel cost of the coal and nuclear, which is pretty thin, has a cost. However, so that is the challenge, is the renewable energy has to compete with infrastructure that are already there. So this is why there's subsidized. So you can see when we subsidize the wind, it becomes cheaper than producing coal and nuclear, but not if we do not subsidize it. So because of the infrastructure is already there, so it's kind of unfair competition. Yeah, can go to the next one. This is another thing. Renewable energy has another problem, which is it is variable. By meaning variable is when it's really cold, like here in Canada, it's happened, like it's really cold, everyone wants to heat his home. What happened? And you have lots of demand at the peak hours. So this is one of the problems. It's probable that at this very moment, the solar do not hit and the wind do not hit. So this is one of the problems. So grid connection is one of the solution, meaning like connecting with other places which have renewable energy and might have wind at this very moment. But another one is the combination of storage too at peak demand. This is the case study about California, which looked at the solar penetration, underlining that if you have more than 10% of solar integration combined to storage, it can reduce the peak hour by having storage few energy. So this is a very interesting thing and pretty promising, but it's pretty costly. And So I do think the variability has some challenges, but has some solution too. It's not impossible. At the left side, you can see, oh, it was good. At the left side, you can see all the subsidy that has been given since 1950. You can see that oil is a lot of money. You can see natural gas is a lot of money, coal is a lot of money, and you can see the tiny renewable energy. Sure, in the past year, renewable energy is bigger, but the only way of this graph only tells you that I do think it could be normal to keep subsidizing it like a lot of money, because we already did it for oil, which had negative impact environmentally. So I think it will be normal to like subsidize a bit. And this is at the right. You remember when Scott Foster told us that actually we are in a trend to go to like 4 to 6 degrees Celsius. So this graph tells you the Paris target in terms of CO2 emissions. So you can see that 2 degrees Celsius is like 800 and 1.5 is like near 400s. And with the currently developed resources that we have, we just busted. So that's really mean that we have to switch this, we have to stop producing this energy and really go to cleaner energy, or has Caleb underlined it, just extract it from the sky from the air. So I will just finish with one question that that has been asked by a great man from my home country, whom asked, does it cost more to produce 1 kilowatt hour or to reduce the consumption of one? So this is pretty, like when we talk about energy, it's really a question that we always have to have in mind. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Hugo. Hello, everyone. My name is Aidil Pananrang. I'm from Indonesia. Right now, I'm Vice Secretary General of PBHMI, which is one of the oldest student movement in Indonesia, and also a master student at Indonesian University. So before I give you the holistic view about what's happening in the Asia Pacific, especially, let me explain to you the state of art in Indonesia. Here's the number of the renewable energy mix in Indonesia. Currently, it's on 10.4%, but we expect in 2013, we'll try to get to 26% with some intervention scenario by the government, by the policymaker, because if not, if we don't push it using the policymaker, we guess we just reach like 12.1%. And then primary energy mix in Indonesia is still dominated by fossil fuel and coal, which account for 38% and 30% of total primary energy in 2016. And then I tried to zoom in at the previous number. Here's the power plant installed capacity per energy source in Indonesia. So 50% of it is still dominated by coal, 29% by gas, oil 7%, and new and renewable energy resource is 40%, in which we can see the hydro one is the biggest one. It reached like 50% of the total new and renewable energy source in Indonesia. And then we got geothermal as at the second position, and then also biomass contribute a significant number. So Indonesia power plant capacity in 2018 reached 64.5 gigawatt. And then so the main supplies, as I already told you, come from hydropower, then followed by biomass, geothermal, and biodiesel. But there's still a lot of problem in order to push this new and renewable energy so we can make bigger proportion, but I guess I will leave it into our debate session. And then here's the state of art also about the SDG 7 progress in Asia Pacific. As you could see about the goal 7, as we can see in UN policy brief in 2012, there are like 5 parameters of it. For the point of access to energy services and international cooperation on energy, we are already in the good track. I mean, it indicates by the green color. But about energy efficiency and investing in energy infrastructure, we still have to accelerate it to reach in the 2030 goals. But we still got a lot to do about the share of the renewable energy. So as you can see, in the Asia Pacific as a whole, we actually do a pretty nice job in the SDGs as the whole, which you can see at the right table. Quality education is the first one that making progress in Asia Pacific, and the second one is the topic about affordable and clean energy. So I strongly believe we are on the good track on this one, but yet still we have a lot of things to do to push the number even further. And also in Asia, we already get like 99.7% of the universal access of the energy, but the rural access is still on 92.2%. Of good renewable energy technologies represent a viable electrification solution in rural areas, with an emphasis on support for modern lifestyles and productive uses. And then the share of modern renewable in total final energy consumption reaching more than 8% in 2017, and that's the last data I could get. And so when we talk, I do agree with Hugo that energy is not only about electricity, but it's an interesting one in Asia Pacific, since we know that in affordable and clean energy, there's two different aspects. The first, we need to talk about the affordability, and the next one, we need to talk about the cleanliness of it. But how it reach person still in some part of this world, especially in Asia and Africa, I do believe, it still need a lot to do with to make sure everyone got the electricity access. And in Asia, as you can see, at the right end, we already covered like 98.7% in the urban area, but in the rural area, we still only get like 83%. And for example, in my home country, in Indonesia, we already get like 85% for most of our cities, for most of our regions, but still in rural areas, for example, like in one of our island, we call it Nusa Tenggara Barat, it only like still in 65%. So there's still a gap between the urban areas and then the rural areas. So I do believe this is my last slide. So this is what we need to think about, and I do believe all of you in here ever see this one. So let me make it straight that at first, our position, we have some primary energy supply. We have coal, we have gas, we have new and renewable energy, we have oil and others. But I do believe since all of us who come in here have the same vision to fulfill this SDG 7, to make sure everyone got affordable and clean energy, we have to do energy transition. And in this graphic, as you can see, we need to build the power plant, oil refinery, gas refinery, but we have still a lot of work to do. We have to push even more into the new and renewable energy sources, because it will be allocated for the industry, transportation, household, commercial, others, and non-energy sectors too. But here's the thing I want to emphasize in this presentation, that for example, in some countries, in order to make sure that the government could build the energy infrastructure in some region to make sure there's an access to affordable and clean energy, we need a lot of investigation, and in which if a region doesn't have enough demand, we cannot like give enough supply. But I do believe on this debate, we will find a way. For example, we will find the formulation on how to subsidize this kind of region, so we make sure everyone get enough supplies and can have the access of this SDG 7. And also, the last point is about the energy transition. We have 5 aspects to think of. The first is about the cost effectiveness, how can we make people like realize that if we build this kind of new and renewable energy aspect in our country, it will actually effective. But yes, we have still a lot to do in the beginning because the investment value will be really high. And also we have to take care about the environmental sustainability, and then the agility of the deployment itself, and then the energy security, and also the SDGs achievement. So at this point, I strongly convinced that we also have to build like interconnected energy system from one region to another region, whether is it from one country to another one, so we can make sure like we can share it if we have a lot more in one region and another region couldn't afford it or couldn't get it. So we need to come together on these things. We have to think about it. We have to push it together, because I really connected what Emily said in her question, that sometimes as a youth or as people who work in NGO, we'll try our best, but sometimes it just don't get enough attention from the policymaker. But I do believe we should not surrender, and we should come together and push forward. And I do believe that's all for my part. And the next one, I will give it to my dear good friend, Mattheus Eurico.
Hi, Aidil. Hi, everyone. Thank you for sending me the word. First of all, I'm really glad to here to represent South America in this United Nations 75 Dialogue. Well, I work in the wind energy sector in the Brazilian Wind Energy Association, and I'm also PhD student at ESPM institution. So here we're going to talk a little bit about some characteristics about the energy metrics from Latin America and South America. You can go to the next slide, please. First, to start talking about the energy metrics, we have to consider that hydropower and bioenergy are the main sources of energy in Latin America. A distinct feature that is important to mention about Latin America is that hydropower source is the predominant source in our energy metrics. When we go talk about bioenergy and on-orbit energy, they are the two technologies that have shown the highest growth since the year 2000. But also, South America and Latin America has natural resources and potential to explore renewable sources like solar photovoltaic, onshore wind energy, and offshore wind energy. As you can see in the chart below and the graphs below, hydropower energy is the main source from our region. You can go to the next slide, please. Talking about investments and the growth of technology, only in the year of 2019, $18.1 billion was invested in Latin America's renewable energies. These amounts represents over about 7% of the global total renewable energy installed in our region. When we go talk about technologies, the last few years, solar and wind energy have shown exponentially, and a lot of gigawatts have been installed in our energy matrices. Looking at country scenarios, in the year of 2019, Brazil invested $6.5 billion in the renewable energies areas. Chile and Uruguay are also good examples of the energy transition from fossil fuels to renewables, and only Chile invested $4.9 billion, and Argentina invested $2.0 billion. You can go to the next slide, please. But when we talk about these investments bring some key benefits to our region, and I can highlight here some benefits that are already being a challenge for our region. First of all, these key benefits can be considered as lower system costs, diversified energy supply, trade gains by moving away from fossil fuels to renewable energies, distributed power for isolated communities, better air quality and reduced local pollutions, and improvement of education and empowered citizens with the social projects that came along with renewable installations. But we are also facing some challenges that I can show you here. Some of these challenges is still technology costs, energy access to everyone. There are many parts of South America that people doesn't have access to this energy. So still a challenge, improving our infrastructure and also our transmission lines and specificities about our interconnected systems. Also creating new jobs and the digitalization of data we gather from the consumption of energy and electricity. Also reduce energy supply risks, as Hugo told us about it, because we can have some problems of variability, and this is still a challenge for us, especially Brazil and other countries, and a social issue about diversity and gender inclusions. All of this guides us to energy transition scenario. You can go to the next slide, Aidil, please. This energy transition scenario brings us some conflicts to think about it. And I brought for you here some news that came out on the press in the last few days. First of all, when we talk about the opportunity of creation new jobs, recently Inter-American Development Bank published a report saying that Latin America can create over 15 million jobs in the renewable area and sustainable area. You can pass through the animation. Okay, perfect. So we have also countries like Chile, Uruguay, and Argentina. They are being good models to the energy transition, installing new kinds of technologies like hybrid wind and solar farms. But also Chile is pointing out to invest in new ways to storage the energy. Recently, Chile is pointing out to the world that they are starting to develop projects about green energy. So this is an important point that I would like to mention about South America, because it becomes more attractive to investors. When we go talk about global warming, we have to consider the gases emissions that is still a challenge for us. And here I brought for you some news from The Economist. But this problem gets worse when we see the deforestation of our rainforest Amazonia. Aidil, if you can pass to the other slide. Okay, the deforestation, no, yes, thank you. Oh, perfect. If we see the deforestation from our rainforest Amazonia, it accentuated the problem of gases emissions. And it guides us to my last point in this slide, that is, all of this can be helped by the renewable energies. So Latin America has potential and natural resources to implement new technologies. We also have a wind energy potential and solar wind energy potential to explore our natural resources to make this improvements in our energy matrices. I think I have warmed our discussion here, and I'm really glad to have the opportunity to talk about South America and Latin America, and hope you enjoy my presentation.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mattheus. There was a question by Emily via the chat. So maybe you can check this one out. I think it was linked to your speech, judging from the time.
Yeah, I mean, among us, the renewable energies, when you go and see the energy matrices in South America, you see a really huge installation of hydropower. But these technologies that we are implementing, that came along with bioenergy and also hydropower, is helping us to have more flexibility in our energy matrices.
Cool, thanks. So what we're going to enter to now is that finally everyone can debate. These reports only served to give you an idea that there are huge differences between the different continents. As you can see, for instance, with the share of hydropower we can see in North and South America, we, for instance, don't really have that much in Europe, despite maybe the Northern European countries like Norway. So now we're turning to focus on what should be the goal for 2045. The current goals of SDG 7 are obviously focused on 2030, but we want to take a look beyond. And to do that and to ease the process of each of you submitting their ideas to the debate, we've prepared a mural board. I don't know if every one of you is familiar with that one. But the easiest way, if you just follow the link I've just shared, and then I'll explain the rest. I hope that works for everyone. the link's not working, let me know.
Okay, it's working fine, but just a minute to sign
Just
up,
for
I
you,
guess.
for everyone else again, I can also send the invite link again. Let's see. Also, now every one of you is able to unmute yourself, because that would ease the debate, but we just want you to take care if someone starts speaking that you wait then for them to finish. The overall idea of the mirror board is, once you're there, you probably understand, is that there are post-its. You can just copy them and then write down your ideas. And our idea for the beginning is that each of us will have 5 minutes to write down their goals for 2045 and what they think are the major challenges and the countermeasures to tackle those challenges. And once everyone wrote down their idea, in each section, I've proposed an example so you understand how it should be done, given what your idea is, and then writing your initials behind it so we understand from whom the idea is coming.
It needed like access team, I guess. I tried to sign up
Really?
and yeah.
Let's see this one.
Yeah, you should have some request on the board, I suppose.
So far, no. But what I recommend is the second link I've sent to you. I can renew it. 1 second. So this one should definitely work. If you click on the last one, you should access it straight away, because I tried that already with Mattheus. So I would be surprised if it's not working. There we go.
Okay, yeah, sure. It's working.
It's working for you. I hope it works for everyone else too.
Is it working for you guys?
Yeah.
Let me try.
Everyone, you can actually turn on your microphone if
Yes.
you have any problem on your side.
I see Stinaldo turned it on already.
Hello.
Hello,
Good
Stinaldo.
afternoon, everybody. Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Pleasure is ours. I totally forgot that it's gonna be difficult for you with the writing.
No, there won't be anything difficult, Tim. The only thing that I wanted to ask is if we could share that link on the WhatsApp group, because quite strangely, I cannot access the link from the Zoom chat. So just send it there, whoever may, and I will access it from there.
Easy. We can get that one done. I hope the rest of you in the meantime is able to access the mirror board. And a couple of people coming, that means it's working. And I'll send the link again on the WhatsApp group. There we go.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Perfect. So you can see there, I've prepared the subcategories, and now it's just up to you that you copy the small white papers and you then write your ideas in it with your initials.
Hello, Tim. I guess we have to give more explanation, like what is the link for? Like,
oh yes, sure.
Everyone asking in the chat section.
Simple. The link will give you access to this online tool called Miro, and we use that online tool. It's like a big board where you can digitally write down your ideas. And we thought it's easiest if each of us is writing down their ideas first before we start debating them. And so when you click on the final link, you cannot access the link. That is a pity. Let me see, because it worked for the others as well.
I think it's not working. It's just loading.
Just loading. Well, that probably is a matter of the internet connection, because it's already 7 people in there, which obviously have access. Maybe try again with the last link I've sent via WhatsApp, and I can again renew the link.
We have to sign up first, yeah.
You have to sign up first.
Okay.
Okay, that's possible. I'm not sure, because theoretically it works. Moritz, you are in there already and it's working for you, right? Now we can hear you, yes.
Working. It's working, yeah.
It's working for you. Have you signed up to Miro previously?
No, I just did it in the 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yes, I do have Team, but I don't think the problem is to sign up, because it's always loading. It's something connected with the connection.
Okay, so it's just that you have an issue with the connection, and Greta is there in it also.
Oh, guys, I do apologize for this cough of mine. It might interfere with our activities from time to time. I'm battling coronavirus here. So,
yeah. No, it's fine.
that's why it's, I have some symptoms, flu-like symptoms, and yeah.
No, it's all good. You'll figure out, sure. If you need help, Stenado, let me know and I'll assist you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So once everyone's in there, you can see the subcategories. I've labeled them the way they've been for the SDGs. And so now it is just up to you to copy one of the small white pieces of virtual paper, one might say, and write your ideas in there with double clicking on it. And then you can text in there. I think, as I've said, that's the easiest. Also keep in mind that at the end of each post, you write your initials so that we know from whom it is coming. And you can just copy them simply by copy and pasting. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Is everyone now on board and understands the system?
Is there anyone still have a problem signing in?
You've made your way? Because you were texting, we're not able to access it via the link. Emily as well. Let's see. That's weird. Because the last link I've shared worked for the others. And it's still loading for Mattheus. Okay, then
maybe we can share a conversation here with the contributors if the link doesn't work. For me,
if it's not working, then let's try to do it online and skip that section and just debate it one by one. We thought we subdivided in the 3 targets we had with the SDG 7. So the first one being to ensure universal access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy services. And I am aware that Yetunde is quite passionate about that one. So maybe we just skip the mirror board for now and try with everyone in the group to just debate, and Aidil and myself, we'll write down what ideas you've had. Maybe Yetunde, do you want to open this one? Once you're unmuted.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get the last part of what you said.
I've said that I know you're quite passionate about the subtopic 1, ensure universal access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy services. And I wondered whether you want to kick off the debate with some first remarks from your side.
Okay, just like my quote reiterates, for Africa, we cannot essentially talk about energy transition now when there is nothing to transition from. So clean energy on one side, affordable energy on one side, and sustainable energy on the other. Because for energy to be sustainable, it doesn't necessarily have to be clean, right? We can find innovative ways of accessing energy from fossil fuel, like the carbon capture CCS, or coal with CCS, or even gas with CCS. So essentially, we can find innovative ways to tackle our energy problems in an integrated way, other than just saying, focus on renewable energy, because renewable energy in its own, in the grand scheme of things, has intermittency problems, the energy storage problem, irrespective of the fact that the chemical storage is more advanced at this point in time. But we still need something that can help us, meet the energy demands without having to without essentially having to rely on renewable energy upfront. So we need an energy, some sort of energy mix that can deliver global temperatures to about 2 degrees Celsius, and also help to, serve the citizens and meet energy demand. I'm currently working on ammonia for my master's. I'm working on ammonia for energy, and we're looking at how we can basically harness ammonia from manure, human waste, and then basically as a vector of ammonia being like a vector for hydrogen, use it to power local communities, because looking at the SDG, the actualization of SDG 7, the rural communities are yet to be connected. There is no last mile energy access for these people. So how can we use what is within their environment, like waste, human waste? Humans will always, produce waste, agricultural waste, to essentially help them tackle their energy problems in their own communities. So in that way, we are looking at ways we can provide the energy they need within the community and make sure it is used within that community as well. And that's where the transition from just being rural communities to sustainable rural communities spans from.
Mm-hmm. And maybe you can clarify briefly, what is your standing on how we can accelerate access to energy in Africa? Like the most crucial one, I assume, is access to cooking facilities as a matter of energy access. What's your standing there?
Okay, for clean cooking facilities, I believe that at this point in time, just like I said, we can use local resources. I know that for rural communities right now, they're using deforestation is occurring because they have to cut down the trees to facilitate cooking and all that, and that essentially also affects their health. I've been in rural communities where they use the wood that they've basically fell or cut down to cook, and then it's affecting children, affecting the woman who is the major driver of energy within the household. So it's not just affecting the rural landscape, right? It's also affecting the people and essentially impeding their lifestyle and livelihood. So what I think the transition, or what I think the transition from wood to clean cooking would be, will basically find opportunities where there can be like using human waste or some sort of agricultural waste to tackle clean cooking, to tackle the aspect of dirty cooking rather, instead of just relying on some gas centralized solutions. Basically using bioenergy to in a clean way to help them facilitate the need for clean cooking. And then there's an issue of lifestyle with these people because it's something that they are used to. I was on field in a rural area, and I was basically engaging. It was basically a stakeholders engagement with the women in these communities, and I asked them a question. I said, if the improvement of you having access to solar household systems to just relying on candles or battery lights. He said, oh no, we do not use battery lights, we do not use candles. Okay, so what do you use then? He said they use the moon. So the issue of lifestyle within, having people to change their behavior to suit what is needed for their improvement is also something we should critically look at. So it's not just about the innovations, it's about the behavioral transition to enable these people, help us fulfill SDG 7.
Okay, as everyone is, at least most of you are now on the Miro board, I'll also just share my screen. So 1 second.
It seems I cannot log in. I don't know if it seems like a few others had the matter as well, but kind of difficult for me to log in. Although I put the password, the email, and everything, it just doesn't start. Don't know why, but I'm trying here for several times, but it's not working.
Okay.
It's a little bit strange.
I'm
going at it once again. And,
yeah, try again, maybe. Maybe you'll get there in a second. All right. In the meantime, I do. For some reason, I cannot share my screen. Maybe you have to, and we switch tasks.
Okay.
Anyways, in the meantime, we thought, as most of you are now on the mirror board, we give you 5 minutes to write down your ideas. Some started already. You can see there's one note by FG.
Is it good on your screen?
Yes, now we can see it. Perfect. Okay. And I'll just keep track of the ideas and write them down for you.
Just to know, do you want these 6 boxes, like goal and targets?
Yes. So the upper row is for goals. I've wrote down an example in each box, and the lower one is for measures, how to actually reach those targets and challenge the challenges we have along the way there. Does it make sense to you, Hugo?
Yeah, it's good for me.
Perfect. Then I'll just say everyone can write down their ideas until, let's say, 4:45 German time. So yeah, just double click and copy and paste them so you have your own, and then it should work. Maybe even, let's say we do it for 10 minutes so everyone has some time, and 10 to we'll proceed.
It's actually my first time using this, but and it looks pretty fun, you know.
Hi everyone. I don't know, for some reasons, I don't know whether this does not work on a mobile device. For some reasons, I've really been struggling trying to write on this, and I've written, submitted, but I can still see my contribution here. So I don't know what the issue could be.
Hello, Tim. Could you get to that?
Whoop, can you repeat? I just got myself a glass of water.
Yeah, please, Miss. Wait.
Yeah, so I'm saying that I'm really struggling with this. So does it mean that it doesn't work on a mobile device?
It does need a mobile device. I think there's even an app for it. if that helps, maybe.
Or I have to download the app?
So in theory, it should also work via the desktop version on your phone, because I think there's a mobile version. But if it does not work via the mobile version for you, then I recommend there should be an app you can download.
Or maybe just try to log out and log in again, because at the first time I have the same problem, but I go out and come back in, and fortunately everything's getting better. If everybody in the Zoom room having trouble in filling those things, please stay still. I guess we can still interact like 5 or 10 minutes after we're filling this board, and you can also join in the conversation, I guess. Because it seems like only 30% of the room, and it seems like 5 of us couldn't make it.
Right, it's 10 to 5, at least in Germany it is. So I advise we get back to debating it, and if you still come up with ideas while we're in the debate, you're always free to add them to the board. And we can also keep them for later if we won't make it to debate all of them. But we thought we start with target 7.1, so the assurance of universal access to affordable and reliable modern energy services. And just we run through a couple of the ideas that were meant there. So in terms of goals, it means like final consistent ideas of what should be the target we are aiming for. And I think following my example, the first one I see there is from Yetunde, the deployment of energy as a service rather than a product globally by 2045. Can you maybe briefly explain that one, and then we can see whether we whether the rest of us agrees as well, and then we will put it down on our list.
Okay, I hope I'm not on mute.
No, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
you.
if we actually listen to what Scott Foster said about energy transitioning from just being a product to a service, it would give us insight to what I basically put down. So for Africa, yeah, energy is being seen as a product. You buy fuel, you have to purchase solar. But if we can transition into where energy is probably being generated and sold as a service, or where energy is being, basically what Aidil said, interconnectedness between, and yet then you sell from one country to another, I think it would help us achieve the goal better, instead of just, having to deal with the energy sector as just a product, you selling of fossil fuel or selling of renewable energy. So if it's seen as a service other than the product, then I think the race to meet universal access will be much more achievable.
Yeah. Emily, you left a comment there. Do you mind explaining what you've meant with your comment?
Yeah, sorry, it was just to explain a bit more about because I understand the service and product thing, but I don't really mean understanding what way you want to make that possible, and if it's for the government or if it's for citizens to start viewing it in a different way.
It's a question for me, sorry.
I mean, it's for your posted, so if you want to respond, I think it makes sense.
Okay, so what I mean by energy as a service is basically an entirely different business model, and it also helps us transition better into low carbon, and it's directed at the consumers or benefits the consumers more, other than just the seller or the value chain. So the consumer benefits more from this business model, and it can take the form of, say, subscription, where the management company doesn't essentially tax the consumer for the product in itself. You can say, okay, if you want to say purchase 1 kilowatt hour of 1 kilowatt hour, this is the amount you pay, and it's commensurate with affordability rather. So the consumer only pays what he or she can afford, other than just making an upfront capital investment. And you see this happening in Nigeria, where people say, oh, solar is too expensive. Even though in the grand scheme of things, solar is not expensive, yeah, but because they have to pay the capital cost of installing solar panels, buying inverters, batteries, which is like a gigantic cost in this expense. So they just term solar as being expensive. Same with wind as well. But if companies can evolve into a service-based model where they don't essentially, the consumers doesn't essentially have to pay for this upfront cost, where they can just, pay, say, $1 to access 1 kilowatt of energy, or 50 pence to access 1 kilowatt of energy, it would make that difference. And I think that should also transition into other low carbon technologies. And if this can happen, the barriers that we face with the existence of this so-called low carbon technologies can it can get alleviated and increase like widespread adoption.
Does that solve your question, Anne-Marie, or do you have a follow-up question?
No, I think I'm still wrapping my head around this one, but I'll get there. Don't worry.
Okay. Maybe then let's talk briefly about the next one from FG. Is that Fahim?
Yes, Tim.
Maybe explain what you've meant.
Okay, so what I typed here for you is that a fully integrated and as clean as possible universal energy system. So what I mean about fully integrated is that, I'll be straight and honest, we can't just rely on coal, we can't just rely on hydro, we can't just rely on solar or wind. We must put them all together. In energy, there's a term I looked up this morning. It was baseload power. So as in baseload power is usually what the majority of energy sources power a certain city, for example. For example, mostly they use fossil fuels and hydropower. So solar power and wind power, they usually used as a supportive system to complement them. And the second phrase I use is as clean as possible, is that, well, there's no right way on any of the energy sources. Either way, they're gonna produce some kind of emission, whether direct or indirect. So, but what we can do really is to reduce the side effects of those energy sources. Yeah, that's it, Tim.
I assume what you said is mostly referring to the renewable aspect rather than the access itself, right?
Oh, yes.
Then I would move your idea to the second phase, because that's more, because right now it's more about how we can make energy accessible for everyone around the globe.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, just so you know. The next one, I assume, oops, I don't want to move it, is from, I assume it is Larissa, but that's only an educated guess, because the initials are LT. Is that right? Or from whom is the next one? No one's unmuting. Maybe then we'll proceed for now. Who is the one with the initials AP?
It's me actually. But one quick question: are we going to like reviewing like each one of the sticky notes here, or like what?
I thought we run through them first, and then we decide on what we're going to take.
Oh, okay.
That's just a good one.
Okay, thank you very much. What I mean by the regulatory reform to maximize citizen participation, because as you can see, in order to ensure the universal access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy services, each country knows best about their own problem actually, but still we have to cooperate with another country. But sometimes it's about the regulation in there that could not ensure the universal access, whether they pro to like non-renewable energy, whether there are like big corporation like that make sure if we use like renewable energy that can like impact significantly to their businesses. So we need the government to put their hand on it and then create the and regulation so it maximizes the citizen participation. And what I mean by maximize citizen participation is that the government needs to hear the society more, the NGO more, and make sure that we have our thoughts, our minds, and also our participation in order to make the idealistic regulator and the idealistic regulation in a country. That's it, I guess.
Okay, maybe we turn then back to Larissa so you can explain what you thought, if it works this time. or not. Okay.
And for a minute, Tim, Sineye have some words in the chat group. I'm sorry, I'm
Yes.
still having issue with this. I have signed in, but I'm still not able to write. Can I drop my idea here? Yeah, I guess. Sure.
Sure, you can. We'll come back to that one then. Then there's another idea from Yetunde. There are actually three of yours in the first in a row. Can you maybe briefly explain the three?
Okay, let me read it again because where is it? Okay, inclusive service delivery and genuine stakeholder engagement with beneficiaries. Now, the thing about beneficiaries, and what I mean by beneficiaries is people that do not have access to energy at the moment, is that they are seen as beneficiaries instead of stakeholders, right? When making a localized decision for them, right, they are not considered. There's basically the stakeholder engagement is low. They are not included. There's no sort of like social protection. So whatever is done on the federal level, as in the case of Nigeria, just gets, if it's grant, it gets probably missing before it gets to the local level where it's supposed to be implemented in. And when it's a solution, it doesn't get implemented as much as it would be, it should be, because I mean, the solution is not localized. So I think that to ensure universal access, communities need to be hands-on involved in whatever decision is going to be made for them. Let them be the one to decide what kind of energy solutions or decentralized solutions they want, you know, other than just
Can you
doing
also
some.
explain the other two, because we don't have the time that that everyone goes so much in detail. So can you maybe briefly explain what the other twos were meant like?
Okay, so that's two. I'm just going to check.
Next one is prioritization of the
poor populations with localized and so it's basically going back to rural electrification, which guarantees universal access to energy. Like I said during my the rapporteur section, I said that for a country like Nigeria, yeah, an average Nigerian lives below $1 per day. So we need to when we talk about energy access, we need to prioritize these poor populations and decipher the kind of solutions we want to deploy for them that ensures that they meet what the World Bank would call the multi-level tier framework, whether tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3, and we get everybody at the same level, such that we do not have the urban population benefiting more and the rural still in darkness, that kind of arrangement.
Yes, and the third idea?
Third one is, I'm looking for it. If you say it first, let me know.
It's the same on the same level. Integrate access to toilet with clean cooking powered by biogas facilities derived from human, animal, and agricultural waste.
I know that there's like there's a boom in like clean cooking technologies where you can burn wood sustainably and all that. But I also want us to consider, because these people they don't have the funds, and this also takes me back to energy as a service, right? They don't have the funds to buy such. Yes, there are subsidies, quite all right, but like Scott Foster said, we need to build a foundation that doesn't necessarily have to rely on grants and subsidies to survive, right? So how about we take what is in their environment to help them deliver clean cooking? Humans will always have waste. They have animals. I mean, these rural areas are predominantly.
I think we get the point.
Okay.
I would actually say what we've wrote down is most of all an actual step. So rather a way for the lower part, because it's a solution, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Then I would actually move it down to the solution section where we try to fix the challenges. And then maybe turn to Emily. You wrote 3 points as well.
Okay, yeah, I was just throwing ideas about. So I think the energy as a right. I don't know if that counts as a solution or not, but it's basically, I think it takes up the same idea that Yetunde just used right then, which is to change our way of seeing it, which might be also what was meant by surface, but I'm not sure, so I put it in a separate one just in case. Then to like teaching people how to build their own energy sources, that's like literally like it sounds super complicated, but actually it's possible. Like I was in an experience where I saw like someone who had like their own wind turbine, and if there could be like NGOs or governments like ways of just teaching, I don't know how to set one up according to like the different needs. Like in Africa, maybe like solar panel. In the UK, wind turbines, all of that. Just like so, yeah, just a way of like teaching how everybody could like make their own energy so that they're not dependent on the state. So taking back up on other ideas that have already been mentioned here. And then I think that's another solution, like the public-private partnership. So I don't know if you want me to leave that for later or not. Just like basically public-private partnership is just relying on businesses to fund anything more important that we would want to do.
I would actually also say that this one is a kind of a solution to tackle the challenge of how we can make it accessible to everyone. So if you don't mind, I would actually move this one downwards as well. If it's moving, yes. Well, I'll figure that one out in a second. But yeah, thanks. Then there is another note by IC. Who could that be?
It's not a new idea, but I speak from my experience in Brazil. But I believe in many places it's the same way. Private sector action is essential because the government, unfortunately, here in Brazil, it's unable to solve this problem alone. And I think in many places is the same way.
Okay, all right. Cheers. Then Stinaldo, I was so free to copy your idea and make it a post-it. Can you explain what you had in mind when you wrote something in the group chat?
Oh, sure, I will. Well, the idea is that no doubt that there are places around the world where energy is not yet as accessible as we would like it to be, and as the time deserve it, because we're too modernized to have this matter still. And I thought that the way to do it, of course, is to sponsor, what's called clean energy, for two main reasons. First, because it's most probably cheaper to build, and the second reason is that it will be the most probably the way that we will solve our matters in the long terms when it comes to energy. And the way how those who have the power could do that, and we have a certain power to that, no doubt, is by perhaps sponsoring corporations which have good project plans, which might not be very suitable to be applied in very industrious countries, which have higher requirements for energy. So to sponsor these project plans into countries where energy is a more basic need, and where these projects can actually be developed by the owners and by certain small companies who would most probably benefit a lot themselves from applying this method of work. That's how I saw it.
All right. Just collect all of that together. And then I've copied an idea from Chinenye. Sorry for the probably not that well pronounced name. Oh, you've posted another one. Do you mind explaining yours?
Yeah, sure, Tim. Thank you very much, everyone. Apologies, I've really been struggling with this all as well.
Sorry. That
yeah, so I've said quite a few things, especially when it comes to access to clean and affordable energy. So one of the major challenges I see with this is there's a disconnect between what we want and what the people actually want, right? So most of the time the people are totally disconnected from what solutions we are actually proposing for them. Especially I come from the background of rural energy access, and when we work in these rural communities, you see that they are totally disconnected from what is happening, like
from the government perspective or from the development perspective, because they see it as your own project and then you're trying to impose it on them. So, and that definitely affects uptake and adoption, because at the end of everything, what we want is that everybody has access. Now, if the people, and then let's also not forget that we are not developing, or we are not trying to achieve this SDG in a vacuum. This SDG, we want to achieve it for people, right? So if the people that we want these SDGs for are not adopting and then taking up these services, then there is a disconnect. We'll keep on rolling in cycles. Okay, that's one. And then number two, I mentioned about the place of harnessing into women's knowledge, women's collective action, women's empowerment, right? So like in the whole world, you find that the world population is almost 49% women. However, like on this group, I don't know how many women that we are here, and the majority are men. How do we, and if we continue this way, we'll find out that we'll be missing a huge chunk of inputs, intelligent inputs from these women. I'll give you an example. In the rural communities, especially rural Nigerians, 70% of people in rural Nigerians are women and children. Now, when we're talking about, let's say we're talking about rural energy access, and then we are not involving these women to bring in their expertise, to bring in their first-hand knowledge on the use of these their first-hand knowledge on energy and energy, that's including electricity, cooking, and others, then we may be designing systems that are not really appropriate for the people, and it's going to affect adoption. And the reason why I said that we need to involve women as change agents is that women are really able to, okay, of course, we all know that women are the primary producers and consumers of household energy, right? So if we have to, if we really want to increase uptake of clean energy in especially rural communities and the Africa as a whole, the world as a whole, then these women have to be involved across all the value chain of energy. I also see that most of the time we relegate women to the distribution part of energy, but these women have more potentials to contribute across all the value chain. I'll give you a classical example. When we work in rural communities and then we come up with solutions, solar solutions, we come up with a lot of clean energy, clean cooking solutions. It's these women that gives us feedback. They're the ones to tell us, hey, anti-solar or whatever, this is not working, and this is the reason why it's not working. These women are the ones to give you feedback. So how is it going to ease our stress when these women are actively involved across both the development stage of whatever energy solution that we have for them, down to the distribution stage? You see that it's going to save us a lot of stress. And then also, I want to mention the last thing I talked about. So, and then I also saw that huge gap from today's presentation. Only my brother from South America actually mentioned the place of inclusive and gender and inclusive inclusivity in clean energy access. You find out that this is an aspect that is overtly neglected, and if we continue to neglect it, then we may keep on rolling in cycles. So the last one I mentioned was, what was that? Oh, what was that last thing I mentioned? Yes, the last thing I mentioned was the government, the DFIs, striking a balance between scale and impact. So we recently concluded a project on electrifying 10 rural, lighting up actually 10 rural primary health centers in Nigeria. One of the things I've noticed is you go to cities, especially in Nigeria, I'm actually speaking from a Nigerian perspective. You go to cities, and of course, most hospitals, most health centers in the cities, most schools, let me not really say most, but a good number already have access to energy electricity, some of them are connected to the grid. But in the rural community, almost more than half of these health centers are not even connected to the national grid at all. And then the trend I noticed is that the government and the DFIs, of course, they want to invest their money where they are really looking at the economy of scale, right? They are trying to invest their money where they have people in urban cities, where they have hospitals, where they have schools, neglecting the people in this rural community. So how do governments and DFIs start striking a balance between scale, investing on scale and then investing on impact also? In Nigeria currently, we have over 70% of the rural population without access to energy at all. We're not even talking about clean energy now, without access at all. But we see a lot of investments going on in the urban settings. So we really need to strike this balance. If not, we find out that we'll get to a point where we are still going to have this 70% of people still in energy poverty. So these are the 3 points I really want to point out. Apologies if I've taken so much time. Thank you.
Thanks. And finally, I'm happy that it works for you, that you can contribute by speaking rather than using Miro, but at least there's now a way that you can contribute. That's the important part. I've tried to rethink your ideas and maybe formulate them in a way that they could that they are more focused on what could be the goal. And so far, I came up with 3 suggestions we may use to further deepen on that one. You can find them a bit to the right-hand side within the first section. In 2045, a minimum, we can still talk about the percentage, but a minimum of X% of the population in each country has access to electricity, to take out one aspect. In 2045, cost for energy, so energy for heating, cooking, etc., does not exceed a certain percentage of the overall spendings people can spend of what they have available as in terms of money. And the third one being by 2045, education, how to build renewable energy sources is available. The last one specifically referring to what Emily has said. I haven't had the time to rethink what you've just said, but maybe we can also get the gender equality aspect moved in there. But maybe let's try to focus on the 3 ways to frame it. Maybe add to my ideas some of yours. Anyone who wants to start on that one? Or maybe say, hey, you misunderstood my point. Can you reframe it? I just tried to put your ideas into concrete goals.
Are you talking to me, team?
Or to everyone, not just specifically to you.
Okay, all right.
Team, what was the question again? Because
yeah, the question is, I tried to, while listening to all your ideas, I've tried to shrink them into 3 concrete goals of what should be the case, so that it's easing the debate. And so my question now is, do you think that what I've wrote down is reflecting a specific goal of what you've said as the broad idea? For instance, you talked about that people don't have access to energy, especially in rural areas, and that it is difficult for them actually to pay because they are in the position to decide between paying for food and paying for heat. That's why, for instance, I came up with the idea of saying what they spend on energy should not exceed a certain percentage of what they have as money as a whole. So the task now is, do you think that the 3 ideas I've tried to frame from what you've said is reflecting what you've said earlier?
Yes, pretty much.
Could you just sum up what 3 points you think summarize everything?
They on the right-hand side in the same section.
Cheers.
Post-its. No, it's all good.
That'd be pretty useful for me if you could summarize those.
Yes, yes. That's just
there's no chance for you. You got to summarize those.
Yes, maybe we should mention everyone. Stenaldo is blind, so that's the reason why it's difficult for him to understand that section.
On how to build renewable energy source should be changed to capacity building, and so we can say by 2045 there should be, say, an XX percentage of capacity building within youth and women, right? Something in that nature, because youths are a major share of Africa's population, and I think globally too. So.
And we can get that in a second. I just repeat the ones for Stinaldo. The first one being in 2045, a minimum of X%, that's a percentage we have to agree upon, of the population in each country has access to electricity with a focus on rural areas. In 2045, costs for heating, for instance, cost for energy, for instance, heating and cooking, does not exceed a certain percentage of the overall spendings per household. By 2045, education on how to build renewable energy sources is available. That's the 3 points.
Seems pretty fine for me.
Yetunde, which of the three were you referring to? I couldn't understand.
The third one, which says education, I think it should be tweaked to capacity building, because Google has several resources on how to build renewable energy, but capacity building should be like a focus for basically youths and women, like Chineye said. So yes, youths, which is a major share of our population, and also women for gender equality.
All right, I put that as an exempligrad here, so as the major example. All right, is there anything to the three I tried to shrink down you want to add? So do you think there's a need for a fourth point?
Thank you very much, team. I will still want to say that gender inclusion should be a major component of access to clean and affordable energy. It should be it shouldn't be embedded under any of these 3 points. It should be a major.
And how would you formulate it then in maybe one sentence? And I write it down.
Oh, okay. In 2045. In 2045, okay, let me reformulate and then I'll get back to you. Let me think of how to put it. And then
if you come up with something, maybe just send it via the chat, and then I'll edit. Cool.
All right, sure, I will.
Anyone else who feels the need to add something to that section?
Yes, maybe I would like to refer to the third point as well. Maybe just adding transparency onto education, since we've talked about like the perception of clean and sustainable energy, and yeah, you know, maybe making it more transparent and informing people about it, about the backgrounds, and yeah, kind of generating access more of it. Just adding kind of the word transparency, I think is important.
Okay, I've added making it available in a transparent manner. Is that suitable?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. Anyone else?
Tim, I want to ask about the education point. Does this include raising awareness on how we can help our country's issues?
That's on the capacity building.
Well,
I think education should be like overriding that education's available on the internet, that like there's awareness raising, that there's also like education directly at school about it, like everything.
If I may raise just a point here, the idea is that education is, you know, it's absolutely important in this regard, no doubt. But the point is, should we not mention in this respect the need for some political promotion to these new methods of energy producing? Because of course we can, you know, get educated there, but I don't think that we you know, or the hopes that in a place where energy is not, you know, easily accessible, we should, you know, have the expectation that somebody will start building there, you know, the mechanisms to use the, you know, the natural ways of producing energy through wind or whatever. So I think there should be some, you know, some help from those countries which has surpassed these matters, like, you know, the European Union and the states, maybe so those countries that make the United Nations in a way. So how do we deal with this particular matter here?
So you would say that there should also be some sort of green funds available,
Of
that
course,
get educated, but that they also have a chance to actually invest.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Another point that we can think about it to ensure energy to everyone is especially think about the infrastructure and transmission lines for countries like in South America and Africa, because we in many places here in South America we don't have the infrastructure to bring the energy to these people, and despite we have the decentralization solutions to make the energy reach the consumers, we're still facing a problem because many countries are still depending of the sources that cannot be decentralized. So one point that is really important to mention in these goals, it's about transmission lines. Transmission lines and specificities about interconnected systems, because not all interconnected systems are the same. Like Brazil is different than the United States, and it's different than Africa and countries from Africa, Nigeria, and so on.
Okay, maybe we can add that to the first one, where it was about the availability of electricity. When we talk about energy grids, that we link it to that one, that energy grids, that the interconnectability is increased, right?
Right, team. Interconnectability. This is a good word for it.
I think that would be called energy flexibility, because because
I write down both.
Yeah.
Energy flexibility. Okay. All right. Despite the one that will be added later, hopefully by Ginenia, is there anything else you have to add, or shall we jump to the section on renewable energy?
I just sent something on the chat box team. Sorry.
Oh, you did. Perfect.
Okay, and also if I can just like say something about education as well, because the information technically could be argued that it's already available with the internet and everything, but maybe if we could change that word to like provided, just so that it's more like, you know, the emphasis is on countries actually like doing something about it to make sure people actually have it, and not that it's just available, because when it's available, it's not always accessible.
That's the native speaking there. Yes, sure.
No.
No, it's
That's
cool.
really good.
Change that.
We have just one comment about the renewable fund. Actually, this is what we have here in Quebec, and we have lots of problem with it because it's really hard to manage it. And I give you an example, like a bridge has subsidized, the fund has subsidized bridge, which is kind of nonsense, but the way was arguably like one of the track was for electric car, but like it keep being nonsense because it's urban sprawl. So for green funds, honestly, it's so much like thing to management. It's so much management to have. For fund, honestly, it's probably better if we go like for fund in terms of research and development, or if the government build in itself like infrastructure. This is interesting too. But I think it's really key one. If you create a fund which people have to send grant and you say yes or no. But for research and development, it's really good. But like if you have a project, it's probably better to have other way, which I've proposed in the solution topic, which will be later.
Okay, I think what you've said, as you've pointed out yourself, is probably easiest to be solved via the section how we actually gonna find solutions to it, and not necessarily where we talk about the targets. Is there anything you want to add to the target section, or shall we turn to the targets on renewable energy? Okay, I'll take that as we jump onwards. And now Aidil will handle the debate.
Can I quickly make I don't want to drag us back, but from what I can see in the first slide, basically I see that there is no direction to investments and right to policies. Was that left out to be included in some other target, or?
And what do you recommend? Shall we change that now, or can we keep that for later? Because
okay, let's see how it goes then.
Maybe time-wise, a quick recommendation. And because I think what we can still do, and that's something, for instance, would be very keen to my heart, I would be very keen, it would be very close to my heart, that's the right formulation, would be to talk about renewables as well. Because I think we should latest close by the next half an hour, maybe 45 minutes additionally. And so maybe also at least briefly talk about renewables, and then we'll set up a Google form where you can submit your ideas for how these goals should be actually reached, because I think that's not within the time boundaries we have for today. So if you could keep the idea, Yetunde, I would.
Hey, can I say something?
Yes.
Can I say something?
Yes, sure.
Right, sorry, I actually joined the meeting quite late, so I just wanted to catch up with everything that is being said.
Mm-hmm. Do you mean in terms of where we're standing right now? William? Maybe a hole in the connection. Let's put it this way, William, I'll send you a message soon, and then you can, I'll update you individually. All right, then let's turn to the renewables, and Aidil, you take over, right?
Okay, sure. So we're moving on. Thank you very much, team, on target 7.2, which is increase substantially the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix. And then we'll start with it's TK. I assume it's you.
Yeah, that was just the example. You can jump to the second.
Okay. Then the second one, prioritizing investment in the continuous development of renewable energy. FJ, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, could you give like brief explanation with what you mean by this?
So what I mean is, well, one of the issues in the development of renewable energy is in its funds. So what I mean by prioritizing investments is that, I'll take it for example, Indonesia. When it comes to solving problems, whether it's in energy sector or the health sector, it usually seeks partnerships. Because I know the government doesn't have funds for that. It usually seeks partnerships with the private sector or even with neighboring countries, especially in the ASEAN sector. So that's what I think should be prioritized, because well, not in Indonesia, just in everywhere around the world, it's like energy is a side issue. I mean, like, you don't really talk about it until the issue is brought up, really. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. What do you think about it, Tim? Shall we proceed to Emily's?
Yeah, you can just go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Emily, about your point, can you give more explanation?
Okay, so I'll just do like the three really quickly.
Okay.
Because I've got like 3 different ones. Might be
Okay.
easy. Okay, so the first one was to tackle the oil industries. So I don't know if like many of you are familiar with that theory, which is that most of the things are like most of the change is not happening because it is not in the interest of the oil industry, which is the richest one in the world, and therefore they kind of boycott any attempt to do anything else. So also joining to FG's point about prioritizing investment, if we subsidize all that, the oil will not be subsidizing, like they need to be valued in order to be considered at all, and for that to be put in place. So like one of the theme, but like the thing is, it's not something that can be politically put on a piece like, hey, how can we stop the boycott by the oil industry? So I don't really know how we could formulate that. That's the general idea. Then they might need to be subsidized or encouraged by, yeah, exactly. So that's the same point. So how to get through that barrier, they're the exact same thing. So one of them can literally go. And then the other one is at the citizen level, which is to find a way to simplify procedures for citizen initiatives. So what I was saying in the presentation of Scott earlier. That's it.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Is anybody on the Zoom meeting want to ask a question to Emily? Is there anything and still remain unclear? Or anyone wanted to help to conclude?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. So if not, I guess all of us, I assume, get clear enough explanation about that. And so maybe we can try to discuss the next point and to MS.
Yes, so I'll keep it short.
Okay.
I just think there's a lot of potential to save energy, to get more efficient, especially in the EU, the USA and Canada. They have enough money, they have the resources to do so. So yeah, I think they could use renewable energy, save energy. Yeah, so I think 50% is realistic.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts where you come with the number, like 50%?
Not really. I'd just settle for 50.
Okay, then. I guess we can take it as, wait, as one. Anybody want to debate that? Or anybody agree? Or maybe anyone didn't get the point?
Yeah, let me just say something very quickly. I hope I don't lose internet again. I was talking about countries identifying their unique potentials and opportunities. For example, I'm a green researcher. I work in green chemistry, and I've seen a lot of potential in biomass, for example. Not so much is being said about it. So when farming is done, the waste from farming, for example, is being thrown away as residues. In Africa, for example, people burn it unsustainably, and then a lot of gases, polluting gases into the atmosphere. Now, there's so much that can be done with this. Like my project, for example, my master's research, for example, is talking about trying to get fuel from these residues, these biomass residues. And Nigeria has a lot of agricultural potential and a lot of agricultural waste that is being thrown away, that is being burnt unsustainably. I think that a lot of investment has to be made into these kind of alternatives. There's so much potential in this. It actually comes with some level of circularity in terms of economy, such that waste residue is limited and all that. And so my point is countries should identify their unique opportunities. Now, not every country would definitely be saying they want to invest in solar, for example, because not all countries would have the kind of sun, for example, to get solar energy from. But when countries identify these opportunities and see that, okay, we have this potential, what can we use it for? Do we just get agricultural farm? How do we encourage our farmers, for example, to go into large-scale farming, and then we get these residues from them and see what we can derive from it? So much potential is there, but it's just so sad that a lot of countries are not looking into it. I think that in terms of renewable energy, renewable energy is not just in wind alone. Renewable energy is not just in solar alone. There are a lot of potential in biomass. I'm very specific about it because it's kind of what I'm working on, what I've done a lot of research in, and I can say that there's so much potential there. So countries should identify their opportunities and see how they can use.
I'm kind of missing the last part.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Just like the last sentence.
So the point is countries should identify their opportunities and just invest in those their potential points. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that every country has their different potential that need to be explored more, rather than using like general or universal views on implementing these goals. Hello? Oh, okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I think that what Williams was referring to is that countries should be allowed to see and to study and actually see the the renewable energy potential that works best for them, because at the end of everything, renewable energy potentials are they are specific to individual countries. A country like Iceland that is thriving 100% on geothermal, you wouldn't expect Iceland to shift to using solar because there's absolutely no sun in that country, right? So I think that's what he's trying to. I think that's one of the things that he's trying to mention.
Okay, so during the rapporteur session, we essentially stated the resources that are available in our country in different proportions. So, and during the whole engagement, we've also mentioned that the solutions have to be localized. I think we've made so much emphasis on that. And I totally agree with Williams that biomass is a very, it's an amazing resource that can be used to solve our needs. So because of time, I would like us to like finish this up. If we have any other ideas, maybe we could, Aidil, maybe you could forward us to some sort of contact that we could, engage more on.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And actually about the last point, since Tim previously said that we have very limited time, and if everyone do realize, we almost reach like 3 hours for now. After this, if like we couldn't finish all of this point, we will trying to keep and maintenance the communication like in our WhatsApp group, and we can still like following up each other, and then I'll guess that would do. Yetunde, what do you think?
Okay, great, awesome.
Okay, thank you very much. So moving on, the use of more than 50% of renewable energies in all manufacturing process is law, but no initial here. Is there anyone typing this? Is it you, Moritz? Oh no.
No.
Maybe if no one like we cannot elaborate more too. Maybe we can go to the next point from Yetunde. Remove subsidies on developed low carbon technologies such as solar and onshore wind, so that other emerging renewable energy tech can benefit.
Okay, so concisely, it's just linked to what I said in the first slide, which is the deployment of energy as a service rather than a product. If we can achieve that, that would essentially help us achieve this removal of subsidies. Because I think that solar photovoltaic has reached a point where subsidies can be removed. I know that some countries, even the UK, have started considering removing solar photovoltaic subsidies to divert it into offshore and CCS and other emerging technologies. So if we could do this, it would also help us develop the kind of renewable energy mix rather than having to rely on just solar and wind. We can now move focus to what Williams talked about, biomass and other innovative energy technologies.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, anybody want to ask something about that point, or is it clear enough? If so, I guess we can move on the next one from Emily, I suppose. Simplify the administration for citizen initiative and encourage individual input, subsidize alternative energy sources or tax fossil fuel ones, but unpopular later option. This actually me myself really interested in. Could you give more explanation, Emily?
Okay, so this one is based on my personal experience, which is that any small NGO or startup that is trying to like do something for like renewable energy or anything in general is not able to do it because there are too many administrative barriers, which means that like something like half of these startups, stats are so wrong right here, but like loads of startups just die within the year that they've been started because of administrative failure. They don't manage to like communicate and they can't get through to the public. So many actions are being made on which we could rely for like to encourage renewable energies. but we're not using them here because they die of like administrative barriers, like other businesses that override them and that kind of stuff. So we'd need a system that simplifies the procedure for any startup really, or NGO or anything that goes in the same direction that the UN would encourage.
Okay, thank you very much. So anyone want to ask any question about it? Since to be honest, we'll make this fast since we still have a lot of point of talking need to be covered. So I'll just like jumping from one point to another one. And if everyone in here want to conclude and put it on the right side, feel free to do that. So the next one is find a long-term solution. For example, hydrogen to fuel the transportation sector. GB.
Yeah, so what I was trying to allude to is basically the common disbelief of electric cars being sort of like an internal solution for making transportation sustainable, which is like obviously not true. And the public and also governmental response, at least in Germany predominantly, is are a lot of subsidies in that sector. And my idea was just like a general shift from focusing only on that specific sector, making it broader and enabling different alternatives to engage in that matter. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So find a long-term solution. Yeah. Anyone want to elaborate more or asking some question about that, or is that point clear enough for everyone? Okay.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay. Please.
Yeah. So yeah, just to reiterate what the lady just said. Yeah, so government should be able to focus on delivering long-term energy interventions, right? I see, especially as governments are designing post-COVID-19 recovery interventions, interventions on SDG 7 should be focused on long-term. I see a lot of interventions that are set up, especially in the energy space, and then they last for only 1 month. Some last for only 1 year. So I think that's just what I have some examples, but I think we are already behind schedule. But if you wish, I can just give you a short example, like a case study of the Akosombo hydropower dam in Ghana, which has supported the development of that country for over 5 decades. How do we get our government to start focusing on interventions that are going to serve the countries in the long term, not really short-term interventions that will now make the government to keep revisiting the same interventions year after year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So wait, and then the next I guess the point from Fadil Jelane on this one is from the previous session, and Tim just move it like on this table. So I guess we already get enough explanation on that. So the next one we get from Stenado. Mahili, are you there?
Sure I am, yes.
Could you give like short explanation if you want to add more about this point?
Oh yeah, just a little bit. It happens that my point a little bit overlaps with Emily's. I hope I don't mistake the girl's name, but I think we kind of said the same thing, that big corporations, already established firms, have this tendency to, of course, certainly promote themselves, and also to promote their ways or the standard ways of making energy, which of course have a weight on those much smaller firms or companies which are trying to find new solutions to this. Around the history, around the most modern history of the 20th century, we do certainly find some cases of one company preventing another from finding another way to fuel cars, for example. Tesla has a good reputation in this particular perspective. So what I mean is that there should be a way, perhaps, by implementing different policies that would guarantee these small firms that their project continue, and if they are really, powerful, that they will absolutely take a grant, and that they will, one day perhaps solve the matters with energy.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody want to elaborate more on
just
another point?
Just
Please.
working up on what, sorry, I can't remember the name. Just said for now. Okay.
It's Stenaldo. It's a long one. My parents chose a long name. They could have chosen a shorter.
Okay.
Okay.
So to follow up on what Stenaldo was saying, I think if we have to say in the sense of an objective, it would be like funding, like startup projects, young NGOs, just like supporting them, anything that can, prevent them from being bought or like curtailed by the bigger industries that are ruling the world right now.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I need to tell all of us a little bit information. I guess we will proceed this discussion until this target 7.2 is finished. After that, maximum at 25 minutes from now, it will be 11 past 15 Jakarta time. We'll end the discussion, and then we'll continue the rest on the group WhatsApp we have, and then we'll make a document in Google Drive. So we will make sure everyone have their mind, have their thoughts on the documents. So I only want to tell that, and we can move on to Chenenye about the country should be allowed to study and adapt. Oh, I guess this is what William told us too, right?
Pardon?
The point you write about the countries should be allowed to study and adapt.
Yes. It was just to support what William said earlier.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I guess we don't need to discuss about that. We already done that. So I guess there's another point from Stenaldo. Could you explain about that?
No. Aidil, that was a that was sent by mistake. I wrote it in Word, and when I sent it, it was half sent there. So just ignore that one.
Okay. Yeah. And then myself, actually, I'm not quite sure if this will suit, but actually, I'll explain it myself shortly, really short. We have to enhance intergovernmental cooperation. We need to develop an intergovernmental mechanism that will promote cross-border electricity power, trade, and connectivity as one of the building blocks to attain sustainable development. Why I wrote this, since I think that every country, like some of them like make more energy than they needed, and some of the country is struggling to make one. So in the future, for example, in 2045, just in case, like we can help each other between the government, why not? It's just as simple as that. And then I guess we can move. Wait, I'm sorry, because I'm share screening this discussion, so I'll make sure I'm not moving too fast. Okay, wait a second. Okay, so we have some point in here as our target like that. The first one, in 2045, the EU, USA, and Canada should reduce their usage of fossil fuels by X percentage. How everybody thinks about that? Is everyone agree to that point?
I sure do. That would be, there'll be an important step towards a final solution.
Okay, thank you very much. And then if nobody feels want to tackle on that, I guess.
Why don't we use like the developed nations? I don't know why we are just we're just circling around this.
Yeah, we can do that.
That's better. Yeah. That's better.
Because we also
Chile is
have
right.
China doing a lot in that space also.
I have Japan, South Korea as well. Too many. Australia.
Okay. Wait, Tim, can you help me with that?
I've changed it already.
Okay, nice. Okay, in the next one, in 2045, renewable energy should account for at least certain % of the global energy mix. So, anybody?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Nice. Should, as we see previously from each rapporteur presentation, that we still have a lot of work to do into pushing these numbers of the global energy mix. So I guess everybody's agreed to it. And then the next point, in 2045, XX% invested in startups or green SMEs projects backing up SDG 7. Anybody?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I think perfect as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Good for the small and medium enterprises. And then we're moving on. Prioritizing investment in the continuous development of the renewable energy. Anybody?
It's still good.
I'll probably just underline, because renewable energy like is pretty large. Like, does nuclear is renewable energy?
No.
No,
Definitely not.
We could have a long debate about that point.
No.
This is why my problem is renewable energy. It's probably a fuzzy term. I wish I would probably rather more clean energy.
Clean energy, yes.
Because renewable energy kind of, even like a biomass is renewable energy. Wood, like if you can heat your home with wood, it's kind of renewable energy, even if it's one of the worst in terms of
well, no, because if you burn the wood definitely goes. So it's not really renewable.
In terms of you can produce as much energy than you have new trees, yes, by definition it is, but that's the struggle that mostly everyone, when we talk about renewable, we think about clean energy, which is why I really propose to just change the term by if we were to like
trees are not like there's a certain amount of trees, and the more you burn them, the less they are trees. Whereas the wind and solar panel and all of that, like they're a constant source.
Yeah, I do know. It's just like by definition, renewable energy does not exclude wood, because you can use wood as renewable way.
Okay.
What about deforestation? It does make sense.
It does, but I think like.
Wait. Let me interrupt for a second one. If I change the term like this, is anybody still like wanted to revise the word here or the term we're using, or yeah, since what are you debating are really good, but let's go back to the point. If we use the word development of clean energy, is anybody have problem with that?
I think it's better now.
Okay, so I guess we can move on. The next one is remove subsidies on developed low carbon technologies such as solar and onshore wind, so that other emerging renewable energy tech. How about this point? Please, Emily.
Can't we kind of like add them on rather than like take them away from like solar and onshore wind? Because we could still stop. I'm not sure I agree with the point.
Okay, so we want to take the word solar and onshore wind.
Yeah, maybe stop subsidizing like the gas and the oil and all of those, but maybe keep on encouraging greenhouse gas emissions. Like, to whoever put that one, I don't know if they agree or.
Okay, so do you have any recommendation? Like we only need to like remove subsidies on on develop low carbon technologies, just like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that good?
What? Sorry, what do you mean by low carbon?
I don't know whoever wrote this. I mean, is anybody have this point can give more explanation? Since
Can we remove subsidies on anything that's not like renewable?
Could anyone who write this point? If you cannot defend it, then I guess we have to remove it. But if anybody want to give more explanation on this, anyone? Because we cannot put it here if any of us cannot get the picture of it.
I do not know who wrote it. The only thing I could say on that is I think the subsidize ought to be there in terms of just being competitive. So if the energy like in 2045, like nowadays it's mostly competitive, but like in 20 years, maybe the subsidize will be useless, and just like if you don't subsidize and everyone take clean energy, it's useless to subsidize this. So it's probably that he meant by this, he or she, I don't know. But I think I will just not use it as a name, because like no government will subsidize something that is useless too.
Yeah, I see. So what do you think, Hugo? Do we need to take off this point?
Or just modify it, like reduce subsidize on the non-renewable, like oil, gas. What's the other big one? Ooh. Yeah, those ones.
The non-renewable like that?
It's the point just above, just under. Probably like modulate the subsidize in order to stay competitive, like something, because the point, the comment just under this one is like just reducing the carbon emitting, so it's kind of the same one. I don't know if you understand.
I agree with that.
Okay, so should we take it off or we just let it there?
Just remove it.
Okay. Then it is actually the same one. No. How about this? It's actually a fair phrasing of the previous one. Anybody?
Yeah, that one is perfect.
What?
Yeah.
Can we take this point? Slowly remove subsidize on carbon polluting energy sources.
That's okay.
We'll just withdraw this slowly, personally. Just remove.
Agreed.
Okay. Great. Wait a second.
But understand the politically correct approach. Just
like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then I guess that's all. I'll try to zoom out so everybody on the YouTube, if anyone still watching, could see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's it. We already covered the target 7.2 about the increase substantially the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix. And like I previously say, I guess we will end the discussion after this point. After this, we can continue to proceed in the group, and we will set a document for all of us. Tim, can you take it over from here?
Yes, sure. So it would come as no surprise when I say that the debate took longer than we expected initially, but we hope you still could take a lot from it. Our plan now is that we will prepare a Google form where we will write down all the ideas we agreed upon already. So you can comment on those if you feel there's still something on your mind you think that has to be added. And also we will add those sections we couldn't make by now. So you can then submit your ideas in that section. All your ideas will then flow into a final report we will eventually send to the UN. Definitely take the time to fill in the Google form then. I'm not sure whether we'll make it tonight because in Jakarta, it's already now 5 minutes past 11.
Yeah.
So that probably will take 1 or 2 days, but we're going to work on it. And yes, Fahim, we can definitely take a picture before we leave the Zoom. Maybe therefore it is helpful if everyone turns the camera on if they don't mind. That would actually ease it.
Yeah, sure. Can everyone turn on their cameras?
If you don't mind, obviously.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Amazing. Williams, are you there? Okay, then.
Is mine on? I guess it is, yes.
Yes.
Okay, Yetunde?
This is on Stenado.
I'm sure I look beautiful, I know that.
You do.
Yetunde is still
Okay.
on.
Just keep smiling.
Okay, I'll count 3, 2, 1. Smile. Wait, let me check. Really short. Okay. Photos. Let me take another one for last time. If anybody wanted to do screenshot themselves, please do. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's great. Oh, my bad. One more time. My bad. I'm so sorry. Actually, I don't know if I want to take picture or just loving look.
I just will be smiling.
Yeah. Okay. 1, 2. Nice. So, okay, perfect. Okay, then I guess
All right,
that's
thank
it.
you, everyone.
How we properly close this thing? Are we just close it?
Do you have an idea?
No, I guess that's all. Thank you very much for participating.
Absolute pleasure.
And we are hoping actually this initiative can go along with all of you. So if you have anything in mind, just share it on the WhatsApp group and let's keep this friendship together. Until
Sure. Too bad we weren't live.
2045.